This week's Player of the Week goes to Mr. Elijah from the 4- and 5-year-old division that plays on the Pandas team. Man, Elijah had a smile on his face that was as big as the sky. Elijah, while kicking the ball in the goal, kicked it so hard that his shoe fell off, and he didn't stop. He kept running, he kept playing, he showed the game by respect by never ever giving up. And finally, when the whistle blew, he stopped, he got his shoe, he held it up high, and he smiled with the biggest smile you've ever seen. So Elijah, man, good job having fun out there. You are a model of what we want all of our kids to be. They're having fun and never, ever giving up. So, Elijah, good job from the Pandas. You are this week's LC Sports Recreation Player of the Week.
This week's Lasso Works Cedar Coach of the Week is David Roberts of the Royals. Coach Roberts is actually the assistant coach, but his head coach was out with illness this week and other child issues. And so David stepped up and ran practice and both games because he had a doubleheader this week and did phenomenal. David, thank you for your encouragement of those kids and your overall job. You are our Coach of the Week.
All right, welcome to episode 22 with Winning with the Home Team. Today, it's just me and David Balyeat, and we have some guests that are here, Mr. Rick Montgomery and David Montgomery. And we'll get into why they're here in a second. But again, the purpose of our podcast is to help families win at home and on the field. So if you're in our soccer league or have ever been a part of our soccer league before, you may be familiar with this soccer ball. It's called the Zeb Strong soccer ball. And we're going to hear the story today about how this soccer ball came to be and also where it has gone all throughout the world. All right. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Mr. Rick and David Montgomery.
Hello,
hey, guys.
Hello.
Hi. You
Thanks.
can just call me Rick.
Okay. All right.
I like Mr. David.
Okay, Mr. David. So I say, so it's Balyeat, and so you're Mr. David, right?
This is Coach.
It's Coach.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, Coach, you've been on the podcast two times now, so this is your third time. Would you tell us the connection between David and Rick and yourself?
So some 30 years ago, believe it or not, 10 years, yeah, that makes a better story. No, I had the privilege of coaching David at Dallas Baptist University, and so we, the Lord's preserved our relationship from coach-player to, two men that want to live for the Lord. So fast forward all these years, and through trials and difficulties, the Lord has kept us together, and so it's been my privilege to be a part of Zeb Strong and what God's doing with soccer balls and Zeb's story.
Yeah. Well, this week we're talking about impact, and ultimately Jesus made the greatest impact on our life when He died on the cross for our sins, right, and gave us the opportunity to have eternal life. And that's the main story that we want to teach families and kids.
That's right.
And Rick and David, you guys use this ball to do that. So please share your story with us. How did this come to be? Who is it named after? We'll just start there.
Yep. So it starts with Zeb loves soccer, just like Coach and I do, and was on his way. He was playing select soccer. He was on his way.
Zeb is your son,
Zeb
right?
is my son.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yep.
He was already playing select, probably going to be on his way to playing college ball also. Very good athlete.
Yeah.
A lot of energy, played a lot of sports actually. And on Mother's Day, he had to be taken to Cook's Children's. And
2014.
2014.
Okay, yeah.
He's better at years than I am. So the crazy thing is the 2 weeks leading up to that, he had soccer practices. He had football practices.
Wow.
He ran a cross-country track meet one weekend and then rode a 10-speed 25 miles with him the Saturday before.
Yeah.
And I was behind. He was still out in front of me, and I was working hard to stay up.
He was in shape,
Yeah.
in very good shape. And I think it was Friday before Mother's Day, I got a call, and it might have been the Friday before that. Anyway, got a call, and my wife said, Zeb has a nosebleed and it won't stop. Okay, well, that's weird. Can you go get him? And I think it had been going on for a couple of hours at that point. By the time I made it up there, he was fine and it had stopped. I didn't think anything else about it.
Right.
That next week, he kind of started complaining about his legs hurting, but not much. We just thought it was practice.
Growing pains.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sore. Yeah.
But then on Friday night, he felt bad. And my in-laws were in town for Mother's Day. And on Sunday afternoon or Sunday mid-morning, he said, Mom, I want to go take a nap. And he never stopped moving, never took a nap or anything. And whenever he woke up, I think he had 105-degree temperaure. And my wife just dropped everything and rushed him to Cook's.
Yeah.
As I'm telling her not to, actually. Oh, it's just the flu. He'll be all right. It took... That was Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday night. They were running all types of tests and blood work and all of that. At one point, they thought this was Lyme disease. And finally, on Wednesday night, they told us, brought us all together and said, we've got some news for you, and he's got cancer. And we usually find this cancer on the autopsy table. 2-week killer is what they told us.
Wow.
Going back to the nosebleed, though, that can be the first sign. And so
Wow.
it was the Friday before because that was Wednesday night. By Friday, he was in a coma. We had to make some decisions very, very quickly on protocols and things like that.
Wow.
And so really, the Friday he was in the coma was the 2-week time period.
Wow.
So they didn't know if he was going to come out of that or not. And when he first did, that was a miracle, obviously. And,
Yeah.
he was nonverbal. And for whatever reason, I told him, Zeb, the Lord's going to heal you, and you will spend the rest of your life traveling the world telling your story. Mm-hmm. And he could smile at that point, but he couldn't talk or anything. But over the next couple of days, he got to where he could type on an iPad.
Yeah.
And I told him again. And of course, whenever he could talk, he said, I know I'm going to be healed, but I am not going to travel the world, and I'm not going to stand in front of people and tell my story. And so, with the cancer journey, there's a lot of ups and downs, and that can be great weeks and then a bad week, or it can be days or even hours. Sometimes how 1 hour starts is totally different by the time it's done. He officially beat it 4 times. And
Officially beat the cancer 4 times.
take the port out. The last time, take the port out, good to go. In all of that, he needed a bone marrow transplant.
Okay.
And it was hard to find a match. We did do the match or whatever. Actually got matches for 2 other people or 3 other families around the United States.
The umbilical cords.
Okay.
They never found a full donor. So.
Well, that's right. They told it. They tested Ron and I, my wife and I, but they said your other son, there never matches. And I don't remember the markers, but it had to be
Right.
7 out of 10. Or
There were 17 different markers.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow. And a true match was all 17?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
When they finally tested Zach, we were getting down to the wire where there was always a deadline
Right.
for health reasons and
Right.
things like that. And Zach ended up being a perfect match.
He was a perfect match.
Wow.
And so that was cool. That was a miracle.
Older or younger brother?
Older brother.
Okay,
So he got to be superhero. So here we're excited. By this point, we were living at Cook's. We'd had some trials and sickness, and we were scheduled to have the bone marrow transplant on a Monday. And the doctors came in on Saturday, and the look on their face was just awful. And by this point, you can tell we've been through enough that you could tell something was about to happen. And they said, we cannot do the bone marrow transplant Monday. If we do it Monday morning, he will be dead Monday night because he's got a cancer that we've only seen one other time in the history of Cook's. And that young man, I think 10 days. He only lived 10 days after that. Are you kidding me? And Dr. Beam is the head oncologist now at Cook's, and Zeb and Dr. Beam had an incredible relationship. It was a lot of fun to watch, and we played a lot. We say our love language is aggravation, and so we played a lot of tricks with him, and it was just fun to watch. He went on trips with us also that Cook sent us on. he kind of stayed after this meeting and said, "Hey, give me some time. I know we're down to a very tight deadline, but I'm going to look and look and look until I can find something," because they said we don't know what to do.
Yeah.
That was the general thing. So he called or texted me on a Wednesday. That was Monday. I'm sorry, that was Saturday. He called on Wednesday and said, "Hey, can you guys meet me at the Olive Garden over by Richmond Mall?" Yeah. Of course we can.
Sure.
It's like a movie whenever we got there. I would swear he was wearing the same clothes, hair kind of messed up, shirt half untucked, and you could tell he had just been looking and looking and looking. And he said, I found something. If you guys are willing to do an experimental drug, which I think we did 15 over the time, or an experimental protocol, I think I found something in Europe. And we'll have to send our lawyers to Congress and get it approved. And, of course, we said yes.
Yeah, sure.
I said, "But can we name it the Zeb protocol?" And he said, "No, you can't. But honestly, part of what's going to happen is for the next, I think it was 2 years, if this works for Zeb, if we have to use it again, you guys will have to sign off on it." And I know the number, it was up to around 9 or 10 at one point. They kept calling us. So he actually beats that. Because of the protocol works, and we're able to do the bone marrow transplant, so everything's great. You have to be in the hospital for 100 days after 100 days?
Yeah.
After the bone marrow transplant, and only one person can be in the hospital room at a time. And we had to go through wash stations to even get to the room because no immune system.
Yes, yeah.
I think by day 80, it had been such a success, and he was doing so well. They were talking about shooting a commercial with him, and it was fun. And they told us when someone makes it to day 100 after a bone marrow transplant, you're good. You're gonna beat it. Yeah. And the doctor said, we look at your bone marrow transplant day as your new birthday.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that was awesome. We make it to day 100, and
There's zero cancer cells. There's zero cancer cells on the test at day 1. It was actually day 99.
Okay. Yeah.
So, of course, we had the house all ready with balloons and congratulations and all of that. And I love adrenaline. Anything that we can do with adrenaline, I love doing that. And Zeb was the same way. And I get up to the hospital. By this point, I think he's lived there 4 months straight.
Yeah, he's been in quarantine with only 4 people or maybe 5.
Yeah.
Plus the nurses that could come in and see him.
Yeah.
So he was ready to see something.
Yes.
And I'm saying, Zeb, I can't wait till we ride the 4-wheelers. I can't wait to shoot the guns. I can't wait to swim. All the things that I know he loves to do. And he looks at me and says, "Dad, I just want to smell the air." Mm-hmm. And
outside,
I just lost it. Like how small his life had gotten, really, by that point, and or the things we take for granted is a better way to say.
He just wanted to smell the air outside.
To smell the air outside.
Yeah. Wow.
And so he actually wasn't. I'd already talked to the doctors about swimming, and they said not yet. But he was stuck on swimming. He wanted to go swimming. And he actually wanted to go out of town to go swimming. And right now I'm forgetting where, but he had somewhere he wanted to go.
Yeah.
And they said, "Well, you've got a checkup coming up. We'll check you then again, and if everything's good, you can go." I feel like maybe a port had been put back in by that point, maybe.
Yeah, they took the port out on the first round of chemo, thinking that we had beaten it.
But we had to put another. Yeah, we put another one in Arizona. That's a whole nother story. We had to go to Arizona, and anyway, so we go back in for this checkup on day 110, and they came back. Let me back up. Every time, I don't remember how many times he did this, but I know it was every protocol at the start, at the finish, probably once in the middle. Yeah. They would check his spinal column and his brain to see if the cancer was there. And it was a big deal. They had to put him out, and I mean, it was over 40 times.
Wow.
One of the games we played, they let me in they realized they were letting me in the operating room during the operation, and the first several times, and we played a game. I'm going to make it to 10, because I always say count to 10 once they give you the medicine.
Yeah.
I'm going to make it. And of course, he always went out.
Yeah.
But then they realized halfway through, Dad probably doesn't need to be in here, and they started making me leave. But they would let me stay in for the countdown. And
Yeah.
that was fun.
That's awesome.
So
Yeah.
anyway, we go in for this checkup, and all we're talking about is going swimming, and everything's going to be good. Like literally no idea, no thought for me anyway that something bad could happen. But they did the test, or maybe they had done the test and were giving us the reading about the spinal column and the brain this time. And they came in and said, we can't believe this. But not only is every time the cancer came back, it was stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. And they said, no, we can't believe it, but this is back, and it's in his brain and his spinal column. And that was hard.
Yeah.
The way I say it, telling your son one time or your child one time they have cancer is very, very hard. Doing it 4 times, 5 times, that's incredibly hard. This night, all the other times, I just knew the Lord was going to heal him. Oh, and by the way, that became what I said the very first time. Lord, Zeb, the Lord's going to heal you, and you're going to spend the rest of your life traveling the world and telling your story. That was our theme. So every time it came back, I'm telling him that, and every time he had the same answer. I know I'm going to be healed, and but I'm not going to stand in front of people and tell my story. But at some point, he gave his life to the Lord through this journey, and
Praise God.
had he been baptized by the?
Yeah, that was
it after?
actually this is part of the story, and
Okay.
Okay, I'm not going to go there. I just was wondering
Yeah.
that time-wise, but
it was in Thanksgiving of 2014.
okay, Thanksgiving. Well, this night we took his cousin was in town, and we took them to not Main Event, but a place like
Yeah,
Main Event,
yeah.
and he did not hear this news yet.
Okay.
We took them there, let them play, but I knew we were going to tell him that night
Yeah.
that this was back.
Yeah.
And so we lived in Aledo at the time. We lived in a neighborhood. There was really one way in and one way out, except for a private road down the backside. And we called it Fossil Road.
Okay.
And he loved playing up and down there.
Yeah.
It kind of became our spot for family talks during
Yeah.
this journey. And so we took him down there, and I start trying to tell him that it's back. And all the other times I was good. This time I lost it. And I'm talking snot crying. And one of the games he and I played was the first grossest, and just trying to gross each other out. And at that time, we had just started a really bad version of it. And I won't go down that route, but he let me just snot cry the whole time. And the way I say it now is I think he likes seeing the snot bubbles come out of my nose. But he said, Dad, I don't know why you're so upset. I'm going to beat this. I'm going to be healed. Our conversation actually went to him understanding he was healed either way. Either he was going to be healed here on earth with the doctors, or he's healed in heaven.
Yeah.
And he said, so I'm going to be healed, or I am healed, and I want to tell my story around the world. So he said yes. And what I didn't know is, was it that week or
It was a little bit after.
a little bit after that? So he and Grandpa and Grandma got together, and my dad will tell this part of the story, but decided, he said he wanted to give away soccer balls all around the world, everywhere Grandpa goes.
Yeah.
And he's a missionary too, and so
Wow.
I had, now we know that Zeb's story and his salvation story is going around the world with these balls. And
Yeah. Wow.
back up to whenever I first said it, I don't think I knew what I was saying exactly,
Yeah,
but
for
it was
sure.
very cool.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. So
What an amazing story, man. And, just the fact that we're here, with the purpose that we have is to tell his story so that Christ can be honored and Christ can be glorified. How many countries has the Zeb ball been to?
I think it's 46. I haven't updated the list in a year or two.
Yeah.
And someone pointed out to me recently that we have had balls go to Egypt, and Egypt wasn't on the list. But I think we're 45 or 46.
Yeah.
12,000, I think, right?
That's amazing.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
approximately.
So to your point, his story has been shared around the world. And I guess also to his point, he wasn't there to do it. Like he said, he didn't want to get up in front of people, right?
Yeah.
And so that
He
was
would've
true.
go.
I'm
I
sure
know
he would have.
He was, and he was
Yeah.
so dynamic. He would have ended up doing it
Yeah.
for sure. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And so, as grandpa, as you and your wife, Judy, are a part of this, how did you guys get started with the Zeb Strong Foundation?
Well, when we found out that Zeb had relapsed, Judy spent all night, one night, we just call it wrestling with God.
Yeah.
And she wrestled with God all night, one night. And the next morning she said something to the effect of, Rick, I think we need to, she was looking and hoping to find something for Zeb to live for because he had been quarantined for so long. He hadn't been in school for a year. And, he'd been isolated with the nurses and 4 or 5 people, 2 sets of grandparents or whatever it was. And so her thought was, God, what is Zeb's vision for living? And she thought, well, and this was going on all night. And so she thought, well, he's a soccer player, he's an artist, and he's a giver.
Yeah.
When he gets better or when he gets well, we have quite a few teachers in our family. So he could go and tell his story, tell the classes, and ask for soccer balls, and we could give them away.
Yeah.
And so we had him over about 4 days later or 3 days later. We had him over on August the 15th of 2015.
Okay.
And the reason I know that is because I have pictures with the dates on them and videos. And we said, Zeb, and shot him that vision. We just shot him the vision of what would you think about, going around telling your story, asking for soccer balls, and then we could just give them away to people who don't have one. And he said, well, I want to do that. And this is a picture of Zeb.
Yeah.
And,
Amazing.
And this is the silhouette that we have
On your hat.
on our
Yep.
hat. And so he said, I want to do that. And we said, well, you can call it anything you want to. We don't, we just don't know. We don't care either. He said, well, I want to call it Zeb's Foundation. And we said, we can give these soccer balls anywhere you want to give them. And he said, well, I want to give them where Grandpa goes. And I've been going I've been several places in Africa, but mainly to Kenya. Yeah. And so when, when he passed, we invited people to bring soccer balls.
Let me say this part too.
Okay, go ahead.
I told my dad, Alito had gotten behind us big time.
Yeah.
And just a great community. And the whole time they stayed involved. They just, they helped out a lot.
Yeah.
When he did pass away, I told my dad, there's going to be 1,000 people at his funeral. And he's
I
like,
couldn't wrap my mind around
why would there be 1,000 people? And I said, because it's me and our family and my son. I'm saying that for Coach. Anyway, I just knew that the community loved Zeb and had gotten behind us. And so, sure enough, it was standing room only.
Yeah.
And there was about 1,000 soccer balls.
Well, that's what I'm going to.
Yeah.
Here's what's weird. Leading up to it that week, I ended up at an academy on Bryan Irvin, one in Weatherford, a couple of Walmarts, and there were no balls on the shelves. And I remember it didn't register with me what was going on. That, of course, the day of the funeral, I can't even words can't describe how I'm feeling walking in and wanting to honor my son. And it's hard, but I want to honor our son. We had an amazing. I think we did a good job doing that.
Our family did the celebration service, the funeral.
Your own family.
Our own family did.
Wow.
Our son, two sons led the worship along with a cousin, along with some others. And then David got up and talked. Judy got up.
That's amazing.
And I went through the Zeb salvation story with the entire group.
Yeah.
And so
One thing that I think is important that I said at the funeral, and we're all on a journey in this life, and I like to say, we're becoming men, whatever age that some of us it takes a little bit longer than others, but I really feel like we watched Zeb become a man and what takes us a lifetime to do, he did in 2 years. The grace, and actually recently, the grace that was on him through this journey is God given. I mean, that's the only way you can describe it. Days of being so sick, 30, 40 times. And if people came to see him, doctors or whatever, it was never about him. It was always, how are you doing? And wanting to make sure everything was good with you. So, so I'm already upset. I'm wanting to honor Zeb the day of the funeral. And I walk in, and there's 1,000 soccer balls on
834 exactly
on the stage, and I lost it. How awesome is this?
Yeah.
And of course, I was honored big time. And then there was another 1,200 that came in that next week.
within the week.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so
This is the picture of the balls.
And so, how did you guys get the word out that this is what you guys were going to do?
We just simply put it in the obituary.
Yeah.
Bring a soccer ball instead of
Flowers.
Yeah.
instead of
Yeah.
flowers, it got announced at school too. Same
Yeah.
thing. If you're coming,
Yeah.
bring if you want to. Of course, you can't make you do that, but. That's a lot of balls, and so we knew we were gonna do something with it, obviously to honor Zeb. But that many balls, we wanted to start immediately.
Yeah, sure.
And he's about to show a picture where
And so that's the first ball that made it to northern Kenya, and we had we didn't have any labels or anything, so we just wrote Zeb on the
Yeah.
soccer ball.
Yeah. That's the first ball that got it.
And then
yeah.
this is the soccer.
So, timeline wise,
2 weeks.
It was
2
no,
weeks.
No, it was there. It was there on the 23rd of December.
I'm sorry, I thought it was faster than that.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
So there's the
Yeah.
ball that they were playing with. That little ball right there is probably still in existence
Yeah.
somewhere.
Sure.
But this
Which is
was-
a ball that's barely hanging on, you
Yeah.
know, probably made up of like rubber
oh,
bands,
it's rubber
and
bands and
balls
plastic
and
balls,
things like
plastic
that.
bags.
And for them to get a ball, you know, a real ball, and then to understand the
Yeah.
purpose behind that, it's a God thing.
It's a God thing. And there's been Coach has a very good miracle that I'd like you to tell if you can in a second. But here's what's crazy: as we travel, and I love trading the balls out. I don't make them trade with me, but I want to collect balls like that.
Yeah.
And the smile that comes across their face about a ball. So soccer is the world's language. There's no doubt about it, whether we understand it here in America or not. But we go on some trips where toys are given also. And what I really want to say is we are always going to try to feed as we do this as well. Feed the kids, feed the community, depending upon what we're doing that day. But what's crazy is if there's toys, food, and balls all right there, they think they have to choose. We're actually going to give them all, but they always go to the ball. They're willing not to have food for the soccer ball.
Yeah.
So this is a big deal for them.
Oh yeah.
But no, we're like, no, you get all of them, and we're going to,
That's amazing.
everybody gets one.
Yeah.
So
That's right.
Yeah.
the story I'm thinking about that you were involved is when you went. So now we have our own ball, but at first it was the donated balls,
Sure,
and then
sure.
people kept giving.
Which was
balls.
about 2,000 balls to start out
Right.
with, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Coach took a group of balls to Cuba, I believe,
Yeah,
Yeah.
with Derek Hicks.
Yeah.
and so we're very grassroots. Especially back then, we didn't really have a system too much of these certain balls need to go to a certain place. It's just get them in the bags and get them where we can.
Yeah.
And do you remember what happened? So
I'm
you
not
take
sure
these
what
balls-
you're talking about, but
Well,
Nasty
let's
ball.
back up for a second. So, as this was happening, Balyeat, how did you interface?
Well, I remember being at the hospital, and yes, Zeb was always in good spirits. It didn't matter, and some of it was just waving through the window
Yeah.
and just being there for them, and just being there.
I can tell you how he was there on. I don't know if this was the day he passed away, but it could be. It's when you came over, and I think it might have been, but if not, it was the next day. And who I was back then, for sure, I thought you had to tough your way through everything. And so I was not showing any emotion. I know I was showing a lot of emotion, just not crying or
Yeah.
upset or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I had held it in and held it in and held it in. And whenever he got to my house and came walking up the driveway, he fell in his arms. He held me and started bawling like a baby, whether you remember that or not. But
Yeah.
that was huge. That's the first time I let a lot of emotion out that day.
And yeah, if I know this from Balyeat, I know that wherever he goes, he is the mouthpiece of Jesus. And that day, I'm sure he was the arms of Jesus.
Absolutely, he was. That's good.
Yeah.
And he's been that way really for me since 2013 in college? No, 1994.
Yeah, no, it was a lot sooner than 2013. But yeah. And I'll never forget. I don't know if you know this part of the funeral service story, but my part was the night before I was at a wedding rehearsal that I had to do, and that was in Austin. So I drove from my house to Austin. That morning, the next morning for the funeral, I drove from Austin to the funeral. And then when it was over, I had to get in my car and go to do that wedding. And so one of the things that I give God glory for is my mind is going crazy because I'm going from a celebration to a funeral, and all the emotions are messed up. And a friend of mine, a pastor friend of mine from Spain, at 6:30 in the morning, I get a text message from him. He has no idea what's going on in my life. And he texts, and the text was the scripture. He says, "You can come to the throne of God freely." And I'm there driving, and I about lost it. And
God is good.
So
He
knew where So
That's awesome.
that's what I showed up to the funeral, and of course, all the soccer balls, and I was especially, of course, for me, your teammates were there, and that's awesome that God has. Brought that group of guys, and so
I hear you know my brother-in-law, Scott Parlin. Is that true?
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Played soccer with him.
Oh, yeah.
Scotty P,
Goalkeeper. He's a very good trash talker.
It still is.
It was a lot of fun, actually.
Still is. Yeah.
Oh, he's the goalie that we.
No, it's not. That's Justin.
Yeah.
But,
Okay.
So, David, how did you grow as a man and as a dad throughout this whole process?
oh, man, I don't know if I did a lot of growing then.
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking about the moms and dads that are listening to this podcast, right? Who have kids that are playing soccer, 8 to 16 years old. How did you grow maybe after that?
I think this ties in perfectly because as a dad, like I said, I thought I had to tough my way through all of this, be there for my family, but really not in a good way. Because I'll probably say this a lot, just thinking I had to tough through it, plow through it. I had a business at the time with over 40 employees. We did a lot of new construction, and so I pretty much didn't sleep for 2 years. I would go to be at the hospital, go to projects, deal with. I just kept working that whole time. So it's all a whirlwind. I kept a lot of stuff in. A few times I let it out. Whenever I finally, it was even maybe 6 months later, when I crashed hard. And where the growth came in is once I crashed, I surrendered to the Lord big time. And he showed up for me so many ways. We could have a whole nother podcast just on those miracles. And he has redeemed me in every way and redeemed my relationships in every way that can be redeemed. And it's very, very cool. Yeah. He showed me, he taught me during this process, he showed me what his love is truly like and what our Father's love is like. And it's amazing. Yeah. And he related it to my love for Zach and Zeb, and it was really the first time I understood. I mean, there's nothing that Zach or Zeb could ever do that would take my love away from them, and his is exponentially more than ours. Yeah, and so that was amazing.
That's amazing.
I want to have Rick tell the part of because if I get it right, Rick, you couldn't go in to where Zeb was, and Zeb had a hard time. And so y'all texted back and forth, sitting there.
Well, actually, I was one of the 5 that could go in.
Okay.
But it was Thanksgiving time of 2014, and I think Zeb's mom he had been talking about being baptized. And so I just wanted to, I wanted to be sure that Zeb knew the Lord. And so I just started off a texting conversation. And I said, Zeb, I hear that you'd like to be baptized this coming Sunday. It was the Sunday after Thanksgiving. And he said yes. And I said, well, I'm going to send you some scriptures. And we can just do it back and forth texting. And it was really tough. It was tough to get it all going and doing and executed. And so we started on a Tuesday, I think, maybe Monday night. And so we texted Monday, Tuesday, I think Wednesday, Thursday. And it was I was just going through the salvation story, starting with Adam.
Yeah.
And I was making it really simple. And so on Saturday, we finally got to where I just said, Zeb, is there any reason that you wouldn't want to ask Christ to come into your life? And he said, nope, there's no reason that I want, he was indicating that he wanted to. And I said, well, do you stop everything you're doing and let Granddad lead you through a prayer? And the way I want you to do it is I'm going to text you the prayer and then you text it back to me. And so I just led him through a prayer to receive Christ. And he said something to the effect was, I said, have you received Christ? I mean, it's all in here, and it's been a while.
Sure. Yeah.
And he said, yes, but how do I know? And I said, well, because you'll have a witness in your heart that you're God's son and that he loves you and that you love him. And that you have, I said, have you given your life to Jesus? And he said, yes.
Yeah.
And I said, God will always keep his word. So if he said that if you call upon him, then you can be saved, then have you called upon him? He said, yes. Then God is able to accomplish that. And he said, well, okay then.
Yeah.
And so we baptized him on that following Sunday.
One of the things that's cool is that with the soccer balls, tell us how many languages this is in and how many you plan to have it in.
Well, I think our goal is, I believe if you have it in Arabic, we've got it in English, Spanish, and French. And I think our goal is to get it in Arabic.
Yeah.
And if you've got those 4 languages, then you've probably covered the world.
Yeah.
And so that your friend
Masi.
Yeah. No, your friend that translated it into Spanish, to English. I'm sorry, into French.
Genesis?
I think it's is it Genesis? Yeah, it may have been Genesis.
Yeah. Masi?
I think
it's either Masi or
Okay.
Genesis.
Yeah.
So
he's going
anyway,
to kill me for not.
no,
Edit that, okay?
So, but my point is that the idea is that the soccer balls go with the story and with the salvation story and it's cool to me that the technology allowed it to be texting.
Yeah.
And I know why he had to text, actually, because by that point he was having to go through radiation, which he had not done up until that. Yeah. And so I don't think he could come over, actually.
So
that's why they were
at his funeral, our family did that, and it was in my heart to share Zeb's salvation story. And so I just had this picture on a PowerPoint and all of the conversation. And at some point, when I started to lead Zeb through the prayer in the booklet or on the PowerPoint, I just said, I invited anyone who would like to receive Christ to pray with Zeb as I read this prayer. And, I don't know because we didn't ask anyone to stand up or anything like that. We weren't going to do that. But there were definitely students that were wiping tears from their eyes. And so we trust that some receive Christ.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hearts they have been changed because of Zeb's story. Yeah.
So,
and your faithfulness.
One story like that, we go, Open Door Church is where I go to church, and our pastor's amazing with missions. I actually think he's out traveling from Sunday afternoon till Saturday afternoon and then preaches. It's just crazy where all he goes. But in December, we take I think it's 5,000 backpacks full of toys, 500 soccer balls, and go down to Mexico to 8 to 10 different orphanages.
Yeah.
Go out there and give everything away and hold a party at the whatever orphanage we're at or the middle of town. At the end of the night, we hold a party for everybody. And they're singing and just having fun. And then I always get up and tell Zeb's story, and a pastor will say a few things, and we've had 50 people give their life to the Lord.
That's
after
amazing.
that.
Yes.
This particular time, we were in cartel land. I know that because, anyway, we were in cartel land.
Okay.
And I had invited a few to come in. Hey, why don't you had to go out and get some more balls, and why don't you guys come inside and listen to what we have to say? And they did. And there's a story about them, but where I'm going to is it's very chaotic whenever there's 1,500 kids or 1,000 kids or 1,000 people. They all want the balls. And this time, they got in a line. The kids got in a line and were coming to me, and I was handing them to them, taking pictures if they wanted it. Okay. And it was a lot of fun. But I noticed there was one kid, a big kid. I'm about 6'7", so he had to have been 6'9" or so. No, he was 13.
Yeah,
I think,
on radio and TV, you can stretch because nobody sees you stuff.
You can be however tall you want to be. Yeah.
He, at 13 years old, probably was close to 6 foot tall, but still 13.
Sure.
And everybody's coming through the line, and we're giving away balls, but I noticed he's not coming up. And I said, why are you not coming up? And he never would. Finally, I made him. And this is all done through translation. But I said, don't you want a ball? And he said, I do, but that's not really what I want. And well, what do you want? He said, I want what you have right there. And he gave his life to the Lord right there on the spot. That was very cool.
That's so awesome.
So,
Wow.
I'll tell you a funny, one of my trips to Congo, I was at a game, and I gave 2 soccer balls to 2 guys that were on a local team, and I said, when is the game? I want to go see a game. It says at 3:00. Well, I show up. Game doesn't start probably till 4, and I'm like, the teams are there, the people are there, and I'm like, what's wrong? And so I walk out, and I said, what's the matter? Well, you only gave 2 balls to that team. We didn't get any. So I was like, if there's a ball, why don't we have a game?
Yeah,
and so they got the game going, and we had to get together later. And so, that was it was hilarious. That I was like, what's the problem?
Yeah.
Well, you gave balls to them. You didn't give them to us.
That's amazing.
It was in Gobo.
And
translated it.
Yes, it was. Yes.
There you go. Finally. Yep. Well, guys, thanks for being here. Wow.
thanks for letting us.
Thank you for inviting us.
Is there anything else that you like? If we wanted to connect with you guys, how would we do that?
Well, you can go to zebstrong.com.
Okay.
And we have 2 fundraising benefits a year: a clay shoots and a golf tournament. And our golf tournament is coming up on Friday, October the 25th. So if any of you guys are girls, would like to come out and help us send soccer balls around the world, that'd be great.
And the purpose of that golf tournament is to send soccer balls, Zeb Strong balls, around the world. That's
It's to do that.
Yeah.
That's what we also we support Alito Thanksgiving Trot because Zeb was a recipient in 2014, and they're just doing a great work. We also support Make-A-Wish. We support another league in HEB called Liga HEB, and then
I think you need to. There's another big part of what we do that we haven't talked about at all, and that is
Tell us.
The soccer tournaments. We're also putting on soccer tournaments in different places.
Yeah.
And
Where at?
so this
Okay.
the first soccer tournament that we did was in 2016, and it was we went to this prison in Naivasha, Kenya, and we were probably going to give away soccer balls or minister or whatever. And so we asked the warden, they call him the boss. We asked the warden, what could we do to help? And so he, knowing what he would told him our story similar to this today. And he said, we'll do some soccer tournaments this summer. So this was our first soccer tournament, and they called it Zeb Strong.
Love that.
And we've been doing soccer tournaments there since 2016. We also expanded to Nairobi. We have a league there, and actually there's the group that we're connected with it there is called Zeb Strong Kenya.
Okay.
And it's a group. It's not Zeb Strong, but we underwrite
Right.
so much of what they do.
Yeah.
And so the money that we raise does all of that.
Yeah.
But even so, in that story, I think we did a World Cup.
Yeah, we did
style.
the World Cup in 2018.
Wow.
World Cup in 2022. We probably touch, Zeb Strong Kenya touches about 10,000 students, young people, every year, and we touch about the same inmates and the workers there at the prisons.
They had never. So there's 8 prisons, I believe, that participated, and they had never let them inmates travel from one prison to another because they were worried about breakouts. They let them travel, and then at the end of it, my understanding, they broadcast the final game on their national TV and had their version of Al Michaels, like their best sportscaster, come and broadcast it.
Wow.
The warden told Carice, our boots on the ground.
That is outstanding. That was a World Cup soccer ball that we were able to get to them.
Wow.
The warden told him after it was over. I think they even wrote us up in their version of the Wall Street Journal. But the warden said, you must keep doing these tournaments because the whole atmosphere of the prison's changed.
Yeah.
Praise God.
Yes.
You're going to the least of these and using Zeb's story for God's glory.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
That's what we want to do.
Yeah. And you're doing it, and you have been doing it. Man. And we get to be a recipient of that. And
I'm so glad.
just so honored.
We're
So
so
honored.
glad.
So honored. Thank y'all for being here
Thank
and
you.
telling your story.
I
Yep.
do have
Thank you
something
for letting us.
Yeah.
going back, first of all, going back to what you asked earlier about what we could tell parents that are going
Yes,
through it right
please.
now. I think it's incredible that Coach and I are sitting here together this many years later, and I am still best friends with my best friends are teammates.
Yeah.
And I never knew that I was going to need to lean on people. Okay, and a team that's full of love. And actually, I just think the longer you play together, the more you get to know.
Sure,
Of
sure.
course, if the Lord's involved too, the love that happens is amazing. So I leaned on these guys big time, and that was a lot of fun. So I've always loved team. Even I just love being a part of a team. So that's great. They do end up being your best friends throughout life. So as parents that are playing sports and all of that, I would always seek out a godly coach. That's for sure.
Yeah. So important.
That's so important.
Yeah.
And then personally, during those hard times, it's so much easier to rely on the Lord and plug into the Lord and lean into the Lord instead of trying to do everything yourself.
Yeah.
I am very good at picking up stuff and putting it on my shoulders. And every time I do that, I crash into a wall. Every time. But anytime that I'm able to just let him take control and lean into him, it always works out.
Yeah.
And so,
And I noticed that you never included winning in any of those things that you learned, right? I mean, as we're talking to youth sports families, the things that you just mentioned, teammates, pressing into, to teammates and to those that are close to you and how they're your best friends. And that's what a team is. That's what the sport provides, is opportunity for community.
Right.
You want to win because it's fun and all of those things.
well, that's why I'm smiling so big is you guys are hearing a redeemed version. I'm so competitive. My wife and I have not been able to play board games in 15 years. So I only want to win. Matter of fact, she broke her hand here recently. She was a basketball player. When we were dating, or our first year of marriage, we played Pig, and she beat me. And I have not played her since. I challenged her to a game last week of Pig while she's in a cast. She just had surgery and so.
And then she beat you?
No,
Oh, did she take you up on it?
no, she's in too much pain right now. But anyway, So I want to win at all costs, actually, and that's on a team you've got to be competitive, but the other things are what's so important.
Yep, that's right. Yeah.
That's cool.
Well, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Wow.
It's awesome.
We do sports to tell people about Jesus. Sports are good because they provide community, like David said. They provide lifelong friendships. But ultimately, the Zeb Strong Foundation is all about using the story of Zeb to tell the most important story, and that's of Jesus Christ. So thank you guys for being here. Thank y'all for listening and subscribing. And we'll see you guys next time on Winning with the Home Team.